They do not arrive with ceremony, and they do not leave evidence behind. There are no banners unfurled, no announcements made, and no confirmation ever offered. When a crisis ends before the public realizes it began, when a threat disappears without explanation, silence is often the only trace left behind. In those moments, history may never record what truly happened, but Delta Force may already have passed through. Delta Force exists in a space beyond recognition, where success is measured not by applause, but by absence. Absence of explosions, absence of casualties, absence of escalation. Unlike other elite units whose reputations are celebrated openly, Delta Force operates within a deliberately narrow corridor of awareness. Its purpose is not to be admired, but to be unknown. The United States military is filled with legendary formations, each forged by war and defined by sacrifice. The Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and Green Berets have become symbols of American power, their stories told in books, films, and memorials. Delta Force, however, occupies a different realm entirely. It was never designed to inspire the public, only to solve problems that could not afford visibility. The origins of Delta Force lie in one of the most humiliating moments in modern American military history. In 1980, Operation Eagle Claw sought to rescue American hostages held in Tehran. What followed was a cascade of mechanical failures, miscommunication, and environmental challenges that ended the mission before it truly began. 8 American servicemen lost their lives in the Iranian desert, and the world watched as the operation collapsed. The failure exposed a dangerous gap in U.S. capabilities. Elite units existed, but none were designed to operate together under a single specialized command for counterterrorism and hostage rescue. The mission required speed, secrecy, and precision, yet the structure to deliver those qualities did not exist. For many within the military, Eagle Claw became a reckoning rather than an anomaly. One officer saw the failure not as an embarrassment, but as a lesson written in blood. Colonel Charles Beckwith had served on exchange with Britain's Special Air Service and had witnessed firsthand how a dedicated counter-terror unit could function. He understood that elite skills alone were insufficient without a unit built entirely around mission focus and autonomy. Beckwith returned convinced that the United States needed its own version of such a force. The resistance to Beckwith's idea was immediate and intense. Military bureaucracy is rarely eager to create units that operate outside traditional chains of command. Questions of oversight, authority, and legality quickly emerged. Yet the memory of Eagle Claw remained fresh enough that denial was no longer an option. Delta Force was authorized quietly, without fanfare or public acknowledgement. Officially designated 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, the name itself revealed nothing. From the beginning, secrecy was not a side effect of its mission, but its defining feature. Delta Force was designed to exist without a public identity. Unlike conventional units, Delta Force did not recruit through advertisements or open applications. Potential candidates were observed, evaluated, and discreetly approached. Most came from elite Army formations, though exceptional individuals from other branches were occasionally considered. The common factor was not rank or reputation, but composure under pressure. Selection was designed to eliminate rather than select. Candidates were pushed into environments of isolation, exhaustion, and uncertainty. Navigation exercises forced individuals to operate alone for days, carrying heavy loads across unforgiving terrain. No encouragement was offered, and no explanations were given. The silence of selection was intentional. In combat, Delta operators would not receive reassurance or second chances. Selection exposed how candidates responded to ambiguity, fatigue, and failure. Those who could not adapt were simply released, often without explanation. Those who passed selection entered a training pipeline known only to those inside it. What is publicly understood represents only fragments of the reality. Training emphasized adaptability above doctrine, improvisation above rigidity. Delta Force did not prepare soldiers for a specific battlefield, but for any environment imaginable. Urban combat training focused on confined spaces where seconds determined life or death. Operators rehearsed hostage rescues repeatedly, refining movements until they became instinctive. Aircraft takedowns, maritime insertions, and vehicle interdictions were practiced under increasingly complex conditions. Every scenario assumed the worst possible outcome. Weapons training extended far beyond standard American systems. Operators became proficient with foreign firearms, suppressors, and improvised weapons. The objective was flexibility rather than familiarity. In hostile territory, blending in could matter more than fire superiority. Psychological conditioning was equally rigorous. Delta Force trained its operators to compartmentalize emotion and decision-making. There was no room for hesitation, panic, or personal interpretation. Every action had to align with mission intent and strategic consequence. Deployment for Delta Force did not resemble traditional military rotations. Operators moved in small elements, often under non-military cover. They embedded with intelligence agencies, foreign units, and joint task forces. Their presence was frequently unacknowledged, even within theater commands. Delta Force missions were not measured in territory gained or enemies killed. They were measured in objectives neutralized and crises prevented. A single operation might unfold over weeks of surveillance followed by minutes of action. Success meant extraction without trace. Combat for Delta Force was intimate and unforgiving. Engagements often occurred at close range, in darkness, amid civilians. Operators made split-second decisions that could alter geopolitical outcomes. There was no margin for error. Command pressure weighed heavily on Delta leadership. Missions were often approved at the highest levels of government. Political ramifications were considered alongside tactical feasibility. Failure carried consequences far beyond the battlefield. Unlike conventional commanders, Delta leaders operated with limited visibility and extreme accountability. Success might never be acknowledged, while failure could be permanently classified. The burden of command existed without the relief of recognition. Responsibility was absolute and personal. Brotherhood within Delta Force was forged through shared isolation. Operators trusted one another with their lives and their silence. They carried experiences that could not be shared outside the unit. Family members often sensed distance they could not understand. Loss within Delta Force was uniquely painful. Fallen operators were rarely honored publicly. Funerals were private, records classified, details withheld. Grief was internalized and endured quietly. The absence of public recognition did not diminish the weight of sacrifice. Operators understood the cost before they ever joined. Commitment to silence was as binding as commitment to mission. The unit survived by mutual understanding rather than public validation. Over time, Delta Force became associated with America's most sensitive operations. From counter-terror raids to high-value target missions, its presence was suspected but rarely confirmed. The unit operated where deniability was essential. Silence was protection. Controversy inevitably followed such secrecy. Allegations surfaced regarding rules of engagement, civilian harm, and accountability. Critics argued that classification obscured oversight. Supporters countered that exposure would compromise effectiveness. The truth often remained buried beneath layers of redaction. Investigations were conducted quietly, if at all. The public rarely received answers, only outcomes. Delta Force continued operating regardless. Comparison with Navy SEALs often emerged in public discourse. SEALs became symbols of elite warfare, their missions acknowledged and commemorated. Delta Force remained absent from official narratives. The difference was not capability, but intent. SEALs represented visible deterrence. Delta Force represented invisible prevention. One projected power outward, the other neutralized threats inward. Both were essential, but fundamentally different. Delta Force did not seek legacy in history books. Its legacy existed in what never happened. Attacks prevented, hostages saved, wars contained. Success meant silence endured. As decades passed, Delta Force adapted to new threats. Terrorism evolved. Technology advanced. Battlefields shifted. The unit remained deliberately fluid. Its structure changed without public notice. Operators came and went, leaving behind no public record. The unit's identity persisted through doctrine rather than tradition. Experience was passed quietly from generation to generation. Continuity mattered more than recognition. Today, Delta Force remains one of the most classified entities within the U.S. military. Its budget, size, and operations remain largely undisclosed. Even its failures are hidden. Silence continues to define it. In an era of information saturation, Delta Force exists as a contradiction. It operates without narrative, without confirmation, without acknowledgement. Its relevance lies precisely in its invisibility, power exercised without spectacle. The world may never fully understand Delta Force, and it was never meant to. Its operators accept anonymity as part of service. Their victories are uncelebrated, their losses unseen. Their presence is known only when absence fails. And that is why Delta Force remains more classified than the Navy SEALs, because the moment its work becomes visible is the moment prevention has already failed.